Hi everyone, this is Yurii from ORIL, and it means that we have another episode of our Innovation Blueprint podcast. And today's guys, we have another specialist in our virtual studio. Her name is Amber Kahr. Amber, say hello to our listeners.
Hello from Las Vegas.
Yay, Las Vegas. We're going there next week, by the way. So yeah, maybe we're going to see you there. But anyway, we're going to have this pretty cool conversation today regarding your company, the services you guys provide, and your vision of the future of the real estate. So, Amber, you're the co-founder of the company with the name Billions. And in your profile on LinkedIn, what I found, it says that Billions is a highly customized real estate operations platform. Can you please share a little bit more information about this operations? What kind of operations, guys, you provide on your platform? How you can help the customers and what makes you so special?
Yeah, I'd love to. And thank you so much for having me. This is great. I love talking about all things tech and real estate. Billions, you asked kind of what operations, it's really everything, and which means it's sort of the really unsexy back office stuff. And when we think about real estate and our clients, real estate teams, they are businesses. And so they need a platform to run their whole business, which is a lot of the really unfun parts of running a business. And we're trying to make that more streamlined, more efficient, more profitable for all of them.
All right. Thank you for sharing. And on your profile, it says that you guys are based on Salesforce. Is that correct?
That's right. So there's a couple pros and cons there, but initially the company was founded by Andrew, who's our CEO and my co-founder. And he had some experience working with Salesforce. He came from a real estate background. He ran a team in the DC metro area that did both retail and wholesale. And they tried a bunch of different systems and nothing really worked. And if you know anything about Salesforce, it's a pretty flexible platform. And people can build on top of it. And so that's where the initial idea came from. And one of the benefits is that you can be sort of a non-technical person like Andrew is, engage some technical resources, and there's plenty with experience in the Salesforce ecosystem. And you can get up and running a lot faster than if you were to build a whole bunch of infrastructure and, servers and all of this stuff from scratch. And so that's one of the things that we decided to do, which is to build on top of a Salesforce platform because we can get to market a lot faster. And we also get to leverage all of the infrastructure that Salesforce has without having to make a huge upfront investment to build a product.
Okay, that sounds good. Like a pretty interesting story. And can you tell me where the idea came from? Did you have some specific issues in your processes that makes you to create Billions? Or that it was just an idea based on some feedbacks? Where the idea came from?
Yeah, so a lot of that came from Andrew's experience running a team. And if anybody, has run a real estate team or even been on a real estate team, there's a lot of moving parts similar to a company, right? And a lot of the tech in the real estate space is focused on sort of one part of what you may do in your real estate business. So for example, marketing, right? There's lots of marketing tools and they're really focused on lead gen and that sort of thing. And that's great. But then you move down that client journey and suddenly you have to deal with the transaction part of all of that marketing effort that you did to acquire a client. And so then you have a second tool that maybe manages transactions and a third tool that maybe manages commissions and a fourth tool that's managing your revenue and your financials, right? And so what we found and what Andrew really painfully experienced is as you start to layer things on top, and maybe they talk to each other and maybe they don't, usually they don't, that becomes really hard and very expensive to manage. And it also means that it's very manual and there are things that get lost. And it's, whether you're talking about real estate or any business, that tends to be a typical trajectory of, oh, let's buy this one thing to solve one problem. Let's buy another thing to solve a second problem. And then you end up with 15 million things to manage. And the cost of managing those things becomes huge. And the risk that you have something fall through the cracks, like, for example, a date of closing, which is super important in real estate. And you have all these things you have to do leading up to a closing. And if you forget one thing, you could lose that entire transaction. And so that was really the birth of the problem. Is Andrew was managing this big real estate team doing tens of thousands of transactions and managing all of this marketing and lead gen, and it was very, very disparate. And he kept trying to extend and stretch one tool to try to meet the needs of some other areas, and it just didn't do it. And so he moved over to Salesforce, engaged a firm to basically custom build out a solution on top of the platform. And that's was the beginning of what the product Billions became.
Okay, thank you for sharing this story. And as you said before, Salesforce is very flexible. What about the Billions? Did you guys save that flexibility, or you're already offering like a product out of the box without customization options?
So both, to be honest, which is a confusing answer. So if anyone has really interacted with Salesforce, I think there's a lot sometimes of misaligned expectations. What you get when you buy Salesforce is a platform, and it's always interesting because sometimes, and I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for over a decade. What people expect is what they had before. And what sometimes they don't realize is what they had at their last company or before was very customized and very configured. And that's not how you get Salesforce out of the box. And so we've actually encountered some real estate clients who buy Salesforce and then they go, oh, this doesn't have anything that I thought that it did. And then they'll spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes trying to build it out to be like what they had before. So we picked sort of a middle ground, which is we have a version of Salesforce that has Billions, the application in it, which is pre-configured for, basic marketing, lead gen, transaction, commission, analytics sort of workflow. But then each client can, and they do, customize to sort of meet their business process a little bit better. And so we support both. And we want to give people who have a very simple business operating model a thing that they can start with that is much easier and digestible than getting just Salesforce and starting from scratch. But we also recognize that no two teams are the same. No two real estate teams are going to operate exactly the same. And so there's a lot of room for customization and flexibility there still.
Okay. Yeah. So that's pretty good. And I know there's a lot of platforms on market and a lot of them based on Salesforce. But what makes you guys different? What helps Billions stand out from the rest of competitors?
So there's actually not a lot of real estate tools that are built on Salesforce. There's a couple, but again, they're very focused on either a particular type of real estate. So maybe like wholesale. There is, I think, a wholesale tool in the real estate industry that's built on Salesforce. Or what you're really actually still getting is just base Salesforce, and you require a ton of customization. And so the thing that's actually kind of crowded in the real estate space are what I would say are tools masquerading as CRMs that started as something else. And so, for example, you may have a lead management tool that's essentially a marketing tool. And then they go, oh, no, we're a CRM. And I think that that's a little bit deceptive in the real estate space, because coming from the tech side, when I think of a CRM, it should manage your entire life cycle of your business. And that isn't really the case with a lot of these tools. And so people get bought in on, oh, it's a marketing tool and they have a CRM. And then they end up having to add 4, 5, 6 tools on top of it to really make it do what they can do. Or, like I said before, they get kind of stuck in, oh yeah, I bought Salesforce, and then they don't realize the massive amount of investment they have to make to actually customize that into what they want it to be. And then they get a little bit lost in the amount of not just money, but time that they themselves have to invest to make that work for them.
Yeah, I actually heard a lot of stories about the problems with the customization of Salesforce when the people see some example at their, I wouldn't say competitors, maybe some partners, and they like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I want. But after that, they start having this terrible issue and they're like, no, that's not something that I'd expect. And I did not expect, as you said, spend so much time, so much money, etc.
Yeah.
And Yeah, and another very, very important question regarding the platforms like yours, because you said that you guys run in all that unsexy stuff at the back end. And how can customers integrate billions into another platforms or products that they're using on daily basis so they can connect it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there are definitely tools that people love, right? They do a specific thing for them and they love. And one of the things that we say is we can replace some things, but if there's a tool that you love, we will integrate it. And we have done that many, many times, including tools that maybe people would say are competitors of ours. There's a lot of complementary things, right? And what I always say is that's another big reason that we built on Salesforce, because Salesforce has such a good reputation and has put so much effort and time and money into building a platform that people want to integrate with. We get to reuse those integrations and we don't have to build them from scratch. What we also say is the only limitation we ever have is usually on the other tools side. And there are definitely a few tools, especially in the real estate space that I won't name, that make it very difficult to integrate with. And so that's usually where we're limited is, hey, you're using a tool that they don't have an API. They make it very difficult to integrate with. So is that really a thing that you want to keep? Because if so, there might be some creative things we have to do to maybe integrate your data. But for us, most major tools and especially reputable tools already have pre-built integrations with Salesforce and we can reuse them. So it's free and it's very, very low effort. And we will do that for our clients. I've done many, many integrations with our existing clients of tools that they love. And they work just fine. And it keeps the source of truth of all their data in billions, and they're not logging into 15s of them throughout the day.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And as a software development company from our side, I know that a lot of companies struggling with integrations, and most of the time they need help with that. Do you guys provide this help with integration internally, or you work with some third-party team who does it for you?
Both. We do both. It depends on the nature of the integration. I do most of them, especially if they're pre-built. Salesforce integrations are pretty easy. If somebody wants something very custom, or with a really unfriendly third-party tool that makes it really difficult, we do use firms like yours to help with those integrations. It just depends on who has the expertise in the particular tool, honestly.
All right. And talking about your internal processes, do you guys use? It's kind of tricky question. Do you guys use your product to run your internal processes?
So we're not a real estate team, so no, but we do use Salesforce. So we use Salesforce. We run our business completely through Salesforce. And because we're a Salesforce partner, they give us an org, and that's actually how we manage customer org. So it's really nicely contained into one platform. We use Google Suite and other tools, but our business is run entirely out of the Salesforce instance, which makes it really nice and easy.
Okay, and talking about some different solutions for your day-to-day routine, do you use something except the G Suite or Teams?
We use Google, we use Slack, we use Zoom. One of the things that we use a ton is actually Riverside and Canva for creative. I am not a creative, so as much help as I can get on that side, I use it. We do use some AI tools. We're heavy ChatGPT users and that sort of thing. And it's nice to see, like tools like Canva are already integrating AI. So there's not even like a third party thing that we need for that. But the other thing that I have been using quite a bit is ChatGPT for Salesforce, complex formulas, automations, that sort of thing. And so we're kind of adopting that internally first and seeing, how that functions and how good it is before we would ever recommend to a customer to use it. But we're pretty lean on tools, to be honest. We don't have a very complicated business, so we don't need a ton of stuff that we're pulling together.
Yeah, thank you for sharing about that. And you mentioned that you use some AI tools internally, But do you use it just separately for yourself, or are you using this for billions? And if you don't, do you have a plans to integrate some AI functionality into your product? If yes, what kind of functionality would you like to get there?
Yeah, we get this question a lot because we're built on Salesforce, and Salesforce has announced infinite number of AI features that they're rolling out. By default, we don't have anything on. We get the benefit of we could turn any of that on at any time for a customer, and obviously some stuff has additional, payments and all that sort of thing attached to it. We have been very careful about what and how we roll out from an AI perspective within our own product for a couple reasons. The first being, what I will say about AI is that, there's a common phrase in tech, garbage in, garbage out. And whether you're talking about a system or you're talking about AI, that is very, very true. And we have a way in Billions very specifically that we structure data so that from an analytics perspective, customers they can't put garbage in, so they're not getting garbage out. So that's really important, because then when you introduce AI, it depends on what you're letting it consume, how good it's going to produce for you. And so we have not just flipped on any AI features. And, like I said, there's thousands available from Salesforce that they've invested that we don't have to invest in, but we can enable for our customers. Mostly because my experience is that real estate is a little behind on the level of work it needs to make AI work for you. It's not a thing you can just turn on.
Except the chatbots. Chatbots are everywhere right now.
Chatbots are great. But I think it's a little tricky. We've had some customers who have experimented with some integrated AI tools that they use in Billions, and every single one of them has abandoned them in a couple of months. And I think that's a thing that is not talked about enough with non-technical people, which is it takes a lot of time and inputs to get the AI to actually produce results for you. And I can tell you that a lot of the AI in the real estate space has been around like marketing and communication. And we have had clients abandon AI tools because they try to use it to like book appointments, right? With prospective real estate clients, and the AI said something crazy. And it's because it hasn't learned. And by the way, if what it's learning is not good habits from your agents, and that's what you fed it, then it's going to regurgitate those bad habits. So I think there are obvious use cases for AI. I love AI for like note taking, administrative stuff, remind me of things, right? I think that's a really good use case for AI. Real estate is still very, very, very much a relationship business. NAR's member study in 2023, which was the latest one that came out, 70% of transaction revenue came from referrals. Still very, very relationship based.
Old school.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're trying to get AI to replace your relationships, that's a very precarious position, right? Especially if it's not trained. So I'm a big fan of like AI for like the dumb right? Like note taking, like that sort of thing, for things that won't affect your relationships with your clients.
They're just going to save you some time. It's going to increase your productivity. Yeah.
So that I can spend more time with my client, right? Don't try to replace your agents or your appointment setters with AI, because you're going to have to take 6 months to train it the way you want it for it to actually do anything meaningful for you. And that is an investment that I feel like the real estate industry is not ready to make, right? Like that's a big investment. It's not swipe your credit card, turn it on, and it works for you. And that's typically the nature of the tools in this space. And the AI it's not going to work in that way. And if you're not ready to make that investment, it's going to hurt your business, not help it.
Yeah, I totally agree about that. And another question, you guys didn't use the AI already, totally got your point, but the question is going to be a little bit tricky again. What helps you to stand ahead of the technical trends if you guys don't use AI? Because AI is everywhere. What help you to be different without AI?
Well, I would say I don't necessarily want to be ahead of trends. I want to be the things that people run their business on, which isn't a trend, right? And yes, like there are things that we need to stay on top of, right, to be competitive. AI is certainly one of them, but it's going to hurt us as a business if we just throw AI at someone and they have a terrible experience. And that's actually one of the things people are experiencing with these tools that are like, we have AI, and they try to use it and then they have a bad experience overall with your whole product. We sell a product that is there to help you run your entire business. If AI can help with that, great. But it's not a trend. Being able to see metrics and performance about your business so that you can make decisions to make yourself and your business more money is not a trend. So yeah, we're not exactly a sexy, marketing, lead gen, like all this new shiny stuff, but that's not the things that help you run a business. And like, anyone who's been in like an
I mean, at
operation,
some point it does, but definitely
it
not
can.
about not on the background.
Yeah. Yeah, it can. Like I said, we at Billions use AI, take notes, remind us to follow up with people, that sort of thing. And that's, I think, a great use case. And those will probably be the first use cases that we integrate or incorporate into Billions. And I can tell you, we have a partnership with a dialer company called Dialpad. They have phenomenal AI features, and those all get used within Billions for our customers who are using Dialpad with Billions. So it's not that we don't have AI, and it's not that our clients can't add, right? We as a product company, though, are not suddenly dumping our entire roadmap to be like, we've got to, build our own AI. We, number one, can use what Salesforce has built and say, hey, here's how you turn it on, here's how you train it, here's how you use it. But also because we have a stance of integration, right? We have lots of partnerships. Those tools like Dialpad have already built AI for call recordings, call transcripts. Dialpad's great within Billions. You hang up a call and you can see the sentiment of the call based on the AI within Dialpad. And they don't have to leave Billions to see any of that stuff. It's all there. But that is technically not Billions the product, but we're doing the work to bring that into our product from other products so that they can operate on our platform.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, and that's your point of view is very interesting. If let's say I got it that if let's say something will be provided by Salesforce that you can adopt it, you may use it, but let's say you can build any type of application or the part of your product as a functionality based on AI or without AI. Something, let's say, software of your dream. What would it be?
Well, I would love something that can walk my dogs every day. That would be great because they're very neat.
Okay,
No,
that sounds pretty cool, but how that's going to help Billions?
yeah. Well, you asked me, not you. I think one of the things that's very complicated for real estate teams, especially like when you think of a team, there's a lot of people, a lot of different roles. Like, even like one transaction, right? There could be 5 people involved. I think one of the challenges that people have running these teams is what's going on with all of my transactions and where do I need to focus because something is maybe going wrong, or I have the next big one coming in and that's where I want to spend time. I think that's where, when I think of AI and how it could help me, I think of like, there's another stock term, right? Analysis paralysis. Billions is really great at giving you a view of your business. You can build tens of thousands of reports in Billions based on the data that you have in there. The challenge is paying attention to what's important and picking out what's important. And that's actually where I think we could make a lot of leaps and bounds for our clients and incorporate AI first. Is sure, I have all these reports and all these dashboards and that's all great, but I got to look at them every day and click in and decide what's important and like what are the trends. That's actually where I think if I had unlimited dollars and unlimited time and resources, that's actually where I would spend time, is synthesizing that down to say, this is what you need to pay attention to. These, no more than 5 things. And that's where people end up spending most of their time trying to dig and dig and dig and dig and making assumptions. And that's actually where I think AI would be a great value add, is to say, ingest all of this and tell me the outliers or tell me the trends. And not just tell me that, but what should I do about it? What action should I be taking about these things? And it's just, there's so much. And that's one of the things that Salesforce does really well, is it brings all your data together, right? But then you have to decide to pay attention to it and to do something with it. And I think that there's a lot of work that we could do better, even on our side. Whether that's AI or not remains to be seen. But I think that's where having something synthesize that to say, hey, Yurii, you have a customer that's about to run out the door and they're unhappy. And we know they're unhappy. You don't think they're unhappy, but all of their interactions with you and all of the things that we see about them, there's a red flag in here that somebody might miss. And that, I think, is what helps businesses focus and not try to run in 50 different directions at once. And that is what will save you time and money and give you better insight into your customers.
Yeah, that was pretty open answer. Thank you. Most of the time, people just saying something, okay, that needs to do my job, make my life easier, blah, blah, blah. But that was pretty open. So it feels like it's not an idea, it's a plan. But yeah, what do you think about AI in general? How do you think that will impact the real estate world in the next, let's say, 5, maybe 10 years? Where do you see that? Do you see it as a co-pilot or some replacement? Because before you said there's a 70% of interaction between humans, and AI most likely will not be able to replace that, for now at least. But what do you think about 5 to 10 years?
I think in 5 to 10 years, if real estate really adopts is the first question, right? I'm not sure real estate, over the last 2 years when AI kind of exploded, real estate kind of dabbled and touched and tried and then pulled back, right? Is sort of my experience. So I think first we need to see some use cases, right? You mentioned chatbots. I think we need to see some use cases where it's really working to help, and it's not just sort of this other thing that sits out there that maybe they use. So, when I think about a real estate team, I think a lot of these teams hire an army of, admin kind of virtual assistant type roles. I think whether they replace that sort of administrative role is going to depend on the level of comfort. But I could also see, instead of replacing that role, those roles getting way more efficient, right? And that's a great use case, right? You take a person that you hire to do manual, type of administrative tasks, and you either can replace the person or the person gets 10x more efficient because they're using AI. So I think that's actually, in my opinion, the first logical place to insert AI. Then the next, I do think, is around data analysis. Think about things that are very complicated in a real estate transaction. Commissions.
Oh, that's a lot.
Every single customer that we have does a different calculation for commissions based on how they've set it up. Imagine a world where you could feed AI your rules, and it can look at your transactions and calculate your commissions, right? Again, that's an administrative thing, right? Every client that we've had, they do that in a spreadsheet. And I always say, if you can do something in a spreadsheet, you can certainly do it in Billions. You can certainly do it in Salesforce, which then means that AI can ingest all that data and then say, oh, a transaction that looks like this should have this calculation. So therefore, we can just do the calculation for you. So I think as we chip away at the administrative use cases and it gets better and real estate gets more comfortable, then you can start inserting it into things like, oh, we're going to have it automatically text or automatically email with a level of comfort and a level of training that doesn't screw up your client relationships. And that's where I think your client relationship area has to be the last place that you try to automate or insert something between yourself and the client. But there is a whole host of other things that are very administrative where AI can certainly add value. And I think if people think of it that way and start there, it starts to build a trust and a level of comfort where you can start incorporating it into other areas of your business. But if you try to replace your agents with AI, I guarantee you're going to have a bad experience and they're going to rip it right out and go right back to what they were doing before.
Oh yeah, at this moment definitely. But again, that's just an idea for the next 5, maybe 10 years. And what about near future and the plans for billions? Do you guys have any excited projects on the horizon for the near time that you're willing to share?
Yeah, we have an initial build where we support wholesale customers, and we have a few wholesale customers. They're doing wholesale transactions, not retail, not residential, and we have done a lot of customizations for those clients to really make it work for them because it's really a V1 of that product. And so that we have a lot of interest and we have some really large wholesale teams on billions now. And so I would say if we're going to invest in an area that we really try to make a leap product wise in, it's going to be building that out more because there is definitely a lack of tools for wholesalers. Most of our clients in the wholesale space, they came from some clobbering together of spreadsheets and maybe like a project management tool, right? That isn't really built for real estate. And so there's a lot of opportunity, I think, to make those wholesalers more efficient. And there's a lot of money in that market. So they're willing to invest in tools and they see the value of a tool that helps them manage that business. And they're doing high transactional volume, which means they need to be very sort of organized and methodical about how they're managing their business.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And it feels like we slowly going to the end of our interview and the time is running out. However, before we're going to finish our podcast, first of all, please tell our listeners if they want to learn a little bit more about the billions, your functionality, and the problems that you guys can fix, how they can get in touch with you, where they can learn more.
Yeah, it's very simple. Joinbillions.com is our website. You can find us on LinkedIn, on social media. It's the company is really just Andrew and I. So if you reach out, you're going to get one of us. So it's not, you're not going to get put through the ringer for some questions. But feel free, email us, reach out on LinkedIn or Instagram, and we're very responsive and love to hear feedback from people and questions from people for sure.
Okay, so thank you for sharing your context, and that's already part of our podcast. The last final statement from our guest. Amber, what would you say to our listeners?
If you are in a position where you're in the real estate industry and you're evaluating tech tools, ask a lot of questions and think about the level of effort you're going to have to put in to get out of it what you need. And, I come from tech. I have some real estate in my background and I'm an investor, but I come from tech, and the types of questions that I ask, even when we're talking about partnerships with other tech companies, what's your data privacy? Who keeps your data when your client leaves, right? That's a thing that I think for the real estate industry has not been a big concern until very recently. And those are things that you should be thinking about, right? If you leave a vendor, do they still have access to your data? Can they steal your client list? And sometimes you deal with some pretty disreputable tech companies that are small and new and they're cheap and they're shiny and exciting. And then you realize that you put yourself and your business at risk. And so, my door is always open. My email is always open for people who are like, what do you think of this tool? And the first thing I do is I go look at their policies. And that's something that in real estate you should think about, because those clients that you own, that contact information and all of the information about them, that relationship that you built could be gone in a second if you don't pay attention to those things. And so same thing with AI tools. How do they use the data you're feeding it? And I think that hasn't been a big topic in real estate, and it's starting to bubble up as people have had bad experiences. And especially as, there's a lot of questions about AI and how it uses your data and those sorts of things. Those are valid questions that I think the real estate sector needs to be considering and have some standards for, to be honest. and not sort of allow tech to dictate what the standard is. The industry needs to dictate what that standard is.
Okay. That was pretty long, but very useful statement. So thank you for that. That's definitely the good thing to think about if you're going to get some product like billions. So first of all, I want to say thank you for this conversation. That was very productive. That was very interesting. And I appreciate your time. And I want to say thanks for our listeners. And we're going to see you soon, guys, with the next episode of our podcast. So Amber, just say bye to our listeners. And we're going to end up this beautiful conversation for today.
Thank you so much, Yurii. This was great. Love chatting with you.
Okay, thank you so much. And everybody, ciao for now. See you at the next episode of the Innovation Blueprint Podcast.